A year ago, Jacob and Rebecca made a life-changing decision to move to a new town. Jacob had been offered a well-deserved promotion, making the relocation an easy choice. The new town was further south, where the warmer climate felt more inviting and comfortable. It was an exciting opportunity, but it also meant leaving behind the familiarity of their old life, including dear friends who were now thousands of miles away. Rebecca, too, faced a fresh start. She needed to find a new job, a task that, while daunting, she approached with determination. Fortunately, it didn't take long before she secured a solid office position in the heart of the city. At her new workplace, Rebecca gradually formed friendships, including one with Chloe, a longtime employee who had been with the company almost since its inception. Chloe was a treasure trove of knowledge, knowing everything from office politics to hidden workplace challenges. At first, Rebecca found it difficult to get close to her. Chloe was reserved and not quick to open up. But over time, their conversations grew more personal, extending beyond the confines of work. Rebecca discovered that Chloe was not only kind, but also incredibly interesting. Despite the common belief that making genuine friends as an adult was difficult, the two of them bonded effortlessly. Chloe, at 34, was unmarried and painfully shy, particularly around men. Her nervousness often led to awkward, off-the-wall comments that sabotaged any chances of a second date. While she had had a few relationships she considered serious, for the men involved, they had mostly been fleeting flings. She longed for something more, something real, but love had never come easily for her. One evening over dinner, Rebecca casually mentioned that Chloe had been ghosted by yet another potential boyfriend and wanted to meet at a cafe to talk about it. "A cafe, huh?" Jacob asked, raising an eyebrow. He sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Are you sure she didn't mean a bar?" Rebecca chuckled. "I've never been there, so I can't say for sure," she admitted. Jacob smirked knowingly. "Chloe, no drinking?" "Not this time," Rebecca assured him. "Last time she came over with a bottle of wine after a breakup, she wouldn't stop whining for hours." The next evening, Rebecca made her way to the cafe, completely unaware that Chloe hadn't been entirely honest with her. The truth was, Chloe hadn't been ghosted. She had simply grown tired of being single and decided to try something different. She had signed up for a speed dating event, but nerves had nearly gotten the better of her. Unwilling to face it alone, she had tricked Rebecca into coming along, hoping her presence would make the experience less intimidating. When Rebecca arrived, she immediately sensed that something was off. Instead of a quiet cafe setting, she found herself staring at a lively room filled with small tables arranged in a circle. Men and women sat across from each other, the atmosphere buzzing with anticipation. A realization dawned on her as she turned to Chloe in shock. "You dragged me to a speed dating event?" she whispered, her eyes widening. "Please don't be mad," Chloe pleaded, looking sheepish. "I really wanted to try it, but I was too scared to come alone." Rebecca let out an exasperated sigh. "Chloe, I'm married," she reminded her, emphasizing the word. "You don't have to participate." Chloe insisted. "Just sit and watch." Unfortunately, the organizers didn't allow spectators. To make matters worse, one of the female participants had canceled at the last minute, leaving an empty seat. Seeing an opportunity, the event host quickly ushered Rebecca to the vacant table. Not wanting to cause a scene or ruin the experience for others, she reluctantly agreed to sit there. It wouldn't be a big deal, she reasoned. She would simply tell each man who sat down that she was happily married. Problem solved. The event soon began. The host explained the rules, turned on the music, and signaled the start of the first round. One by one, men rotated from table to table, engaging in rapid introductions. As soon as they noticed Rebecca's wedding ring, their enthusiasm waned. A few college students jokingly suggested that a married woman might be more fun. But for the most part, her presence only added an element of awkwardness. Rebecca sat stiffly, counting down the minutes, eager for the evening to be over. Meanwhile, she discreetly observed Chloe, who was clearly flustered, stumbling through each introduction. She fidgeted, her nervous energy making her words come out jumbled. Rebecca couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. Chloe wanted this, wanted to make a connection, but her own insecurities were working against her. Finally, the last round began. A tall, strikingly handsome man in his 40s slid into the seat across from Rebecca. His confidence was evident, his smile smooth and effortless. Unlike the others, he didn't immediately glance at her ring. He simply looked at her. "I noticed you the moment you walked in," he he said in a deep, velvety voice. Then, before she could react, he added, "And I also saw your ring, so don't worry." He chuckled, leaning slightly forward. "We're just chatting, right? That's not a crime." Rebecca felt her cheeks flush slightly, but quickly composed herself. The man introduced himself as Ethan, and as it turned out, he was married as well. He explained that his wife had no issue with him attending these events. According to him, it was just another way to network for business. Many of the women there, he claimed, were in complicated situations or pressed for time, making speed dating a quick and convenient way to meet people. For him, it wasn't about romance, it was about opportunity. Despite herself, Rebecca found the conversation intriguing. Yet something about Ethan's effortless charm made her wary. Whether his story was true or not, she wasn't about to linger too long in his orbit. As the event came to an end, Rebecca stood up, feeling both relieved and amused by the absurdity of the evening. She shot a glance at Chloe, who was still deep in conversation with one of her final matches. Maybe, just maybe, something would come of this night for her. As for Rebecca, she was more than ready to return home to Jacob, speed dating adventure and all. The brief interaction with Ethan left a lasting impression on Rebecca. He was intelligent, charismatic, and undeniably handsome. Qualities that, against her better judgment, stirred something inside her. The realization made her stomach twist with guilt. She was happily married. This was nothing more than an innocent conversation. Yet, for the first time in a long while, she had felt an unfamiliar spark with someone new. It was almost as if Ethan could sense her inner turmoil. As the timer signaled the end of their short encounter, he flashed a knowing smile and slid a sleek business card across the table. "How about we grab coffee tomorrow?" he suggested smoothly. "I'd love to hear your thoughts on a restaurant concept I'm working on." Before Rebecca could respond, he stood up and walked away, leaving her staring at the card, its edges pressed between her fingers. That evening, when she returned home, Jacob greeted her casually, asking how things had gone. She hesitated for a fraction of a second before offering a vague response. "It was fine," she said simply, avoiding details. There was no point in complicating things. She hadn't done anything wrong, just attended an event by accident, chatted with a man, and walked away. No harm, no foul. But as the night stretched on, she found herself uncharacteristically quiet, lost in thought. The small business card in her pocket felt heavier than it should have, as if it carried a weight far beyond what she was willing to acknowledge. Over the following week, something shifted in Rebecca. She became more distant, speaking less and finding excuses to stay out longer after work. She began spending more time with Chloe, the two of them wandering through the city, grabbing coffee, or simply sitting in parks watching the world go by. Jacob noticed. He wasn't the type to pry, but he couldn't help but find it strange how suddenly inseparable Rebecca and Chloe had become. Still, he pushed aside any unease, trusting his wife. That is, until one afternoon when he happened to see Chloe walking through the park, her fingers laced with those of an unfamiliar man. She was smiling, laughing in a way that suggested she was anything but heartbroken. Jacob's brows furrowed. Hadn't Rebecca just spent the night consoling her over yet another failed relationship? The contradiction gnawed at him. That evening, when Rebecca returned home, he decided to test the waters. "So, how's Chloe holding up?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. Rebecca sighed heavily, rubbing her temples. "Same old story," she murmured. "She spent hours crying on my shoulder." Jacob froze. His mind reeled with the memory of Chloe looking perfectly content, wrapped up in the arms of another man. Something was off. His gut told him that whatever was happening wasn't just about Chloe. A couple of days later, Rebecca mentioned she would be meeting Chloe again. Jacob remained calm, giving nothing away. That afternoon, he left work early, his instincts urging him to see for himself what was really going on. He parked near Rebecca's office, watching as she emerged and walked briskly toward the lot. His stomach twisted as he saw her approach a dark-colored car. The driver's door opened, and as she slid into the passenger seat, the man inside leaned over, kissing her softly before handing her a bouquet of roses. Jacob's hands tightened around the steering wheel, his heart pounding in his chest. Anger surged through him, hot and unrelenting, but he forced himself to remain still. He needed to be sure. He needed to see how far this betrayal went. He tailed them through the city, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief and rage. They drove aimlessly at first, stopping for coffee, laughing like a couple without a care in the world. Then, after what felt like an eternity, they turned toward a hotel. That was it. Jacob's vision blurred with fury as he slammed his foot on the gas, closing the distance between them. The moment the car stopped in front of the entrance, he threw his door open and stormed toward them. Before Rebecca could even react, he struck, his palm meeting her cheek with a sharp crack, snapping her head to the side. "You traitor," he seethed, his voice low and dangerous. His fists clenched as he turned his rage onto the man beside her, delivering a swift, brutal punch to his jaw. Ethan stumbled back, momentarily stunned. "Give me your keys," Jacob demanded, his voice like ice. "You're not stepping foot in my house again." Rebecca, still reeling, fumbled through her purse with trembling fingers, finally pulling out the keys and handing them over. She opened her mouth, perhaps to explain, perhaps to beg, but Jacob silenced her with a sharp, dismissive wave of his hand. His gaze flicked to Ethan's left hand, and there, glinting under the dim streetlights, was a wedding band. Disgust welled up inside him. With one last withering glare, Jacob turned on his heel and walked away, leaving Rebecca standing there, alone in the cold. Back at home, his fury only grew. He tore through their bedroom, pulling her clothes from the closet and tossing them into trash bags. As he yanked a handful of dresses from a drawer, something fluttered to the floor. A small, crisp business card. Jacob picked it up, his eyes narrowing. "Ethan." His stomach twisted as he turned to his computer, his fingers moving with purpose. Within moments, he had found the company online. And there, staring back at him from the website, was the smug, infuriating face of the man he had just punched. Jacob's next move was cold and calculated. He dug deeper, following the digital breadcrumbs until he found Ethan's wife. A few clicks later, he had her number. He didn't hesitate. When she answered, her voice was light, unsuspecting. But that changed the moment he spoke. He told her everything, every lie, every deceitful meeting, every betrayal her husband had woven behind her back. Silence stretched across the line before she finally whispered, "I had no idea." The next day, karma moved swiftly. It turned out that Ethan's wife was more than just a scorned woman. She was well-connected. One of her closest friends? Rebecca's boss. Within hours, Rebecca was called into the office. By the time she left, she was no longer employed. Worse yet, since she had been working off the books, they refused to pay her final wages. Now she had nothing. No job. No home. Nowhere to go. Even Chloe, her once loyal friend, had moved on, settling into her new relationship and leaving Rebecca to fend for herself. Alone, standing in the cold with nothing but regret weighing her down, Rebecca finally understood the full extent of the choices she had made. And there was no undoing them.